Ferrari is closer than ever, and that's exactly why they're about to change everything. Because after China, one thing became painfully clear. They have the pace to fight. They have the drivers to win. They even have the best traction on the grid. And still, they can't beat Mercedes. Now here's the part that should worry everyone. Ferrari is not waiting. They're not playing it safe. They're preparing a second version of their car. A B-Spec concept, mid-season. And if this works, it doesn't just close the gap. It flips the entire championship. But if it fails, they risk throwing away their strongest start in years. Because what Ferrari discovered in China was not just a weakness. It was a ceiling, a limit they cannot break with their current car. So the real question is not if Ferrari is fast. The real question is, what happens when they remove the only thing holding them back? China didn't expose Ferrari's weakness. It confirmed it. Lap after lap, the pattern repeated. Strong in Sector 1, sharp in Sector 2, and then losing everything on the straight. Not slightly, not occasionally, every single time. That kind of consistency tells you something very important. This is not a performance fluctuation. It's a structural limitation. Because the SF26 is doing almost everything right. The front end is stable. The car rotates cleanly through medium speed corners. Traction out of slow turns is one of the best on the grid. And over a full stint, they manage tires better than most teams. Sometimes even better than Mercedes. Which means one thing. Ferrari already has a championship-level chassis. But they don't have a championship-level system. Because in this era, the car is not just aero. It's not just mechanical grip. It's the engine, the hybrid deployment, the way energy is used, stored, and released across a lap. And this is exactly where Ferrari is losing time. Not in braking, not in cornering, but in energy management. Because while Mercedes can sustain power all the way down the straight, Ferrari starts to lose deployment early. The power fades before the braking zone. And in Formula One, that is where races are won or lost. But here's where things get even more interesting. Because despite that limitation, Ferrari is still finishing on the podium. Still qualifying right behind Mercedes. Still matching them in race pace during long stints. Which creates a very dangerous scenario. They are close enough to see the solution, but not close enough to ignore the problem. And when a team reaches that point, small upgrades stop making sense. Because you're no longer chasing tenths. You're chasing a breakthrough. And that's exactly what Ferrari is now forced to do. Because if they continue like this, they will keep finishing third. Maybe second on a good day, but never first. And that is not acceptable. Not for Ferrari. Not with this driver lineup. Not with this level of performance already unlocked in the chassis. So internally, the conversation changes. It's no longer, how do we improve this car? It becomes, how do we rebuild the part that's holding it back? And that's where the B-Spec idea begins. Not as an option, but as a necessity. Because when your weakness is this clear and this repeatable, you don't patch it, you replace it. But that raises a much bigger question. Because rebuilding part of your car mid-season is one of the biggest risks a team can take. So why now? Why this early? And more importantly, what did Ferrari see in China that made them realize they had no time left to wait? Because what Ferrari saw in China was not just a gap, it was a trap. A situation where no matter how well they executed, the result would always be the same. Close, competitive, but never enough to win. And that's the most dangerous position in Formula One, because it creates the illusion of progress, when in reality, you're stuck. Think about it. They qualified right behind Mercedes. They matched them in corners. They managed tires just as well, sometimes even better. On paper, that looks like a team about to win. But on track, every time they tried to attack, they hit the same wall. Top speed deficit, energy fading too early, no way to complete the move. And once a team realizes that pattern, everything changes. Because now the engineers know something critical. They are not losing because of setup. They are not losing because of execution. They are losing because of architecture, the way the system is built. And that's not something you fix with small upgrades. That requires a shift in philosophy, a different way of thinking about the car. And this is where the B-Spec becomes inevitable. Because Ferrari is not trying to gain a tenth. They're trying to remove the one limitation that defines their entire performance. The early energy clipping, the inability to sustain deployment, the moment where the car simply stops accelerating while others keep going. Fix that, and the entire balance of power changes. Because suddenly, those strong sectors in the corners are no longer canceled out on the straights. They become an advantage, a real one. And that's what makes this so dangerous. Because Ferrari doesn't need a complete miracle. They don't need to reinvent the car. They just need to unlock what's already there. But unlocking that potential comes with risk. Because changing how energy is deployed affects everything. Cooling, reliability, drivability, even how the car behaves under braking and traction. One change creates a chain reaction. And that's why teams are usually conservative. They evolve. They don't jump. But Ferrari doesn't have that luxury anymore. Because if they wait, Mercedes keeps winning, keeps building a gap, keeps controlling the championship, and Ferrari becomes a permanent second place. So now the decision is clear. Not safe, not comfortable, but necessary. They have to take the risk. They have to introduce something different. And they have to do it before the season slips away. But here's the part that changes everything. Because this isn't just about performance. It's about timing. When do they bring it? Too early, and it might not be ready. Too late, and it might not matter. And right now, all the signs suggest something very specific. This new version is already being prepared, already being tested behind closed doors, already moving faster than expected. Which means one thing. China wasn't the end of a problem. It was the beginning of a solution. But that leads to the most important question of all. Because if Ferrari is about to change the core of their car, what happens to the drivers? Because in Formula One, a new concept doesn't just change speed. It changes how the car feels. And not every driver adapts the same way. So when this B-Spec finally arrives, will it unlock Ferrari? Or will it create a completely new problem they didn't see coming? Because drivers are where this kind of gamble becomes real. You can design the perfect upgrade on paper. You can simulate every scenario. You can predict performance gains. But the moment the driver gets in the car, everything changes. And Ferrari knows this better than anyone. Because they don't just have fast drivers. They have two completely different driving styles. Hamilton, calm, precise, built around control and consistency. A driver who adapts step by step, who understands how to manage a car over a full race distance. And then there's Leclerc, aggressive, sharp, always extracting the absolute limit. A driver who feels the car at the edge and lives there. Two approaches, two interpretations of the same machine. And right now, both of them are making the current car work. But just barely, because the limitation is clear. They can push in the corners. They can manage tires. They can execute clean races. But they cannot override the power deficit. They cannot fight physics. And that's why the new concept matters so much. Because it will change how the car behaves. Not just how fast it is, how it delivers power, how stable it feels on corner exit, how predictable it is under load. And that affects each driver differently. If the new system becomes more aggressive, more sensitive, more dependent on precise energy timing, that naturally favors Leclerc, because he thrives in that chaos. He adapts instantly. He pushes through instability. But if the new version becomes more controlled, more linear, more predictable in its delivery, that plays directly into Hamilton's strength, because he builds performance over time. He reads the race. He manages the system better than almost anyone. So now Ferrari is not just developing a car. They are defining which direction suits them best, which driver becomes the reference, which style becomes the foundation. And that decision is bigger than one season, because once you commit to a concept, everything evolves around it. Setup, development, feedback loops, future upgrades. And if they get that balance wrong, they don't just risk performance, they risk internal tension. Because when one driver starts extracting more than the other, questions appear, pressure builds, and in a championship fight, that can break a team from the inside. But if they get it right, everything aligns. Both drivers push in the same direction. The car becomes predictable, confidence returns, and performance explodes. And here's the detail that connects everything. Because Ferrari doesn't need both drivers to adapt equally. They just need one of them to unlock the full potential of the new concept. Because once that happens, the reference is set, the direction becomes clear, and the car evolves faster. But until that moment, there will be uncertainty, testing, adjustments, hidden experiments during race weekends, small changes that reveal bigger intentions. And that's exactly what we need to watch next. Not just lap times, not just results, but behavior, how the drivers push, where they gain time, where they struggle, because those details will reveal the truth before any official update. And when the B-Spec car finally arrives, you won't need confirmation. You'll see it in one lap, one corner, one straight, where suddenly Ferrari doesn't lose time anymore. And when that happens, everything we saw in China will finally make sense, because once that moment happens, there is no going back. In Formula One, when a new concept works, it doesn't just improve the car, it accelerates everything. Development becomes clearer, decisions become easier, and suddenly, the team stops reacting and starts controlling. That's what Ferrari is chasing right now. Not just more speed, control. Because in China, they didn't have it. They were fast, they were consistent, they were competitive, but they were not in control of the race. They were responding, adapting, waiting for opportunities that never fully came. And the reason is simple. When you can't attack on the straight, you depend on mistakes, strategy, external factors. And that's not how you win championships. That's how you survive them. But Ferrari doesn't want to survive this season. They want to define it. And that requires one thing: authority, the ability to dictate the pace, to choose when to attack, to control the race from the front. And that only happens when your weaknesses disappear. Which brings everything back to this B-Spec car. Because if this new version delivers what they expect, Ferrari won't need perfect races anymore. They won't need ideal conditions. They won't need to rely on strategy alone. They'll have options, real options, attack or defend, push or manage, undercut or extend. Everything opens up, and when a team gains options, they become unpredictable. And unpredictability is what makes a team dangerous.